I'd like to commend the effort to kind of group together like this. Of course, we're gonna, we keep on, and I know that we're all going to cooperate and sit together, not just to be mechanical about it, but because we're a family and we want to be together, be close, and can hear each other sing, and makes a big difference. You don't have to know very much about the Bible to detect that there's definitely something different and even a bit strange about the book of Revelation. When you open that book and you begin to read, as I'm sure many of us have, all of a sudden you move into a world of angels and demons and dragons and lambs and lions and horses. There's 7 seals that are broken and 7 trumpets that are blown, and the contents of 7 bowls that are poured out upon the earth. There are 2 beasts that appear. One comes out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads and 7 crowns on his heads. And then there's another beast that comes out of the earth with 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. There's thunder and lightning and hail, fire, blood, and smoke. And I think you can see just from those brief remarks, the casual reader, the uninformed reader who picks the book up and tries to wade into that, begins to justifiably view portions of this book as a series of weird and mysterious visions. Well, because there is the strange symbolism in the book of Revelation and all of this bizarre imagery that we confront, people have reacted to the book in various ways. Some people have just abandoned the book of Revelation altogether. I could name you some scholars down through the centuries who just absolutely wanted to throw it out. They just didn't know how to cope with it and really didn't want to cope with it, and therefore just wanted to abandon the book altogether. Some people have abandoned it on the basis that it just cannot be understood. It's unintelligible, too difficult, and therefore let's just avoid it. Let's don't touch it. If we had a show of hands tonight, perhaps some of us would have to admit that's been the case with us, that we have just at times felt like we didn't know exactly what to do with Revelation, so we just best leave it alone. On the other hand, because the book is so figurative, and because there is all of this imagery contained in it, the book has really become a theological playground for some who have managed to come up with all sorts of fantastic interpretations. There are some people who can take the book of Revelation tonight and they can find Hitler found in the book, and they think they have found the reference to the 1960 presidential campaign, or to Cobra helicopters or tanks or missiles or some kind of nuclear explosions and so on. It's always dangerous to approach the Bible with a hobby already in your head. And it's especially dangerous to approach the book of Revelation with a hobby in your head. When you begin to study any part of the Bible with preconceived notions, and I don't say that any of us can totally be objective. I'm not trying to make that contention. It's very difficult to be objective. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to just absolutely clean your mind and start, at the very beginning with nothing already there. You may not agree with me there, but we'll talk about that later. But when you begin with a theory, you've already got the theory. You've already got the preconceived notion. What you do is you have a tendency to make it fit whether it does or not. You force it to fit. And so if you begin with that and then go into this book that's so highly figurative, it's easy to make things fit when perhaps they really don't fit. So as much as possible, we want to clean the slate and start at the very beginning with open minds and not approach the book with hobbies in our heads. Well, there are other people, and I hope this is where we are, who acknowledge that there is much that is obscure and difficult in the book of Revelation. And I'll say from the very outset that I'm not going to stand up here and presume to have all the answers. I will not satisfy everybody. I know that from the very start. Some of you are not going to agree with what I say. But I'll be doing my best to interpret the book and see the book as I can, as I am able to see it through study. So there are some of us who admit that there's much that's obscure and difficult. But we believe that by carefully working our way back into the historical background, by carefully and almost meticulously trying to get back into the historical circumstances of that first century situation, we can, and I underscore that, we can comprehend and we can interpret the central message of the book of Revelation. I didn't say every detail, but I said the central thrust of the message. I'm convinced tonight we can understand it. I'm convinced we can grasp it and put a handle on it and go away and be fairly certain that we got the central message, maybe not all the details, but we got the central thrust of what John was saying. Well, because there has been this widespread feeling that men today just cannot understand the message of Revelation, and I think we have to admit, I just think we have to be honest and admit that even among ourselves, we've neglected this book. It's been a neglected book, I think, in most places, simply because we've been afraid of it at times. But because there is that widespread apprehension and concern and fear in relationship to the book, let me suggest tonight in the very outset some reasons why I think we need to have a change of attitude toward the book. I would really, if we don't do anything else, what I would really like to do in the study of Revelation is to at least help us become more comfortable with this book. It's almost like we know it's there, but we don't know what to do with it, and we're unsure and uncertain. What I'd like to do is help us get to the point to where even though we don't know all the answers, we can at least become comfortable with the book. So let me give you some reasons why I think that's reasonable and logical for us to assume. In the first place, I don't think that Scripture was ever written with the design that it should be sealed or closed to human understanding. Every time I open the Bible, I personally begin with the assumption that God wishes to be understood. Now, that's not to say that I don't have difficulty, because I do with many passages, struggle with a whole lot of it, and just have to keep constantly studying and trying to seek more light. But I make the assumption when I approach the Bible that God gave me this in order that he might be understood. And I think to believe contrary to that is inconsistent with the very nature of Revelation itself and what God would be doing in revealing his mind to man through Scripture. So I want us to make the assumption that God gave us this message and that we can approach it believing that God, through that message, wants to be understood. In the second place, the very label of the book itself, we call it Revelation. And please note that it's not Revelations, it's Revelation. The label of the book itself indicates, I think, that the content of it is to be received with meaning. The English word, as I said, is revelation. The Greek word is apocalypsis. And that word apocalypsis, and sometimes you'll hear the book of Revelation referred to as the apocalypse. That's all right. The English translation is the word revelation.